Ethan Thompson, 16, disappears after school. No witnesses. No leads. His mother Lisa receives a text. "We have your son, $50,000 or he disappears forever." Ransom photos show Ethan tied up. Audio clips of him crying follow hours later. Lisa's wealthy ex-husband wires the money. The kidnappers vanish without a trace. 3 weeks later, Lisa spots Ethan, alive, unharmed, wearing designer sneakers and a brand new iPhone. Before we dive deeper into this twisted secret, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from and enjoy. Lisa Thompson sat at her small kitchen table, nervously staring at her phone. It was 6:30 p.m., and Ethan still wasn't home from school. Usually, he'd be back by 4 o'clock, maybe 4:30 if he had basketball practice. But never this late. A call to the school yielded no answers. Ethan Thompson left school at the usual time, the secretary told her in a cold tone. Perhaps he went to a friend's house? Lisa scrolled through the contacts on her phone, searching for numbers of Ethan's friends. Jake Morrison, the only one whose number she had. The call went straight to voicemail. At 7:15 p.m., the phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" Lisa answered with a trembling voice. "Lisa Thompson?" The voice was deep, obviously altered. "Yes, that's me." "Who is this?" "We have your son." Her heart stopped. What are you talking about?" "Ethan is with us. If you want him alive, we want $50,000. "No, please, this must be a mistake." "No mistake. We'll contact you tomorrow with instructions." "And Lisa?" A pause. "Not a word to the police, or you'll get your son back in pieces." The line went dead. Lisa collapsed into her chair, the phone slipping from her hand. This couldn't be happening. Not to her. Not to Ethan. The next morning, Lisa had barely slept. The lunch she'd prepared for school sat untouched on the kitchen counter. Every time the phone rang, whether for work or anything else, her heart would leap. At 2 p.m., the first message arrived. "If you want proof he's alive, check your email." With trembling fingers, Lisa opened her laptop. In her inbox was a message with an attachment, a photograph of Ethan's hand, bound with thin rope. On his fingers were his characteristic rings that he wore every day. A second message arrived 5 minutes later. "As you can see, we weren't joking. $50,000 within 48 hours. But not from you, we'll be contacting your ex-husband. Richard Black has deeper pockets." How did they know about Richard? How did they know they were divorced? Lisa felt like she was in a nightmare from which she couldn't wake up. The phone rang again. "Richard." "Lisa, what the hell is going on?" His voice was full of panic. "I got a message about Ethan." "I don't know, Richard, I don't know what to do. I got a photo of his hand. And they're asking for money. Why didn't you call the police immediately?" "They said they'd kill him if I called the police." Okay. Listen to me carefully. I won't risk our son's life. I'll give them the money. But after this, we need to have a serious conversation about how you're taking care of our child. Our child." Even in this situation, Richard managed to blame her. On the third day, Lisa received an email with an audio file. Her hands shook as she clicked play. Mom, please help me." It was Ethan's voice, but distorted, crying. They're going to hurt me if you don't give them the money. Please, just do what they say." The recording cut off abruptly. Lisa screamed, throwing her laptop across the room. Her neighbors would later tell police they heard the most heartbreaking sound coming from her apartment that afternoon. Richard called 20 minutes later. "I got the same recording," he said, his voice barely controlled. "That's it. I'm transferring the money. I don't care what it costs. Richard, maybe we should. No. No police, no FBI, nothing. I'm not gambling with Ethan's life because you want to follow protocol. Lisa could hear him typing frantically in the background. There, he said after several minutes. $50,000 transferred to their offshore account. They said they'll release him within 48 hours. What if they don't? They will. They have to. But Richard's voice carried a doubt he was trying to hide. The next 2 days were the longest of Lisa's life. She called in sick to work, unable to imagine standing in front of a classroom and teaching algebra while her son was supposedly in the hands of kidnappers. Richard called every few hours for updates. There were none. The kidnappers had gone silent after confirming they'd received the money. No more messages, no more calls, no word about when or where Ethan would be released. Lisa found herself staring out her apartment window, hoping to see Ethan walking up the street. She jumped at every car door slam, every footstep in the hallway. On the morning of the third day after the payment, her phone rang. Unknown number again. Your son has been released, the same altered voice said. He's at the McDonald's on 5th Street. Come alone. The line went dead before Lisa could respond. She grabbed her keys and ran to her car, not even bothering to lock her apartment door. The McDonald's was only 10 minutes away, but it felt like an eternity. When she arrived, the parking lot was nearly empty. She ran inside, scanning every booth, every corner. Ethan wasn't there. She asked the teenage worker behind the counter if he'd seen a 16-year-old boy, tall, dark hair. The kid shrugged and shook his head. Lisa spent the next hour driving around the neighborhood, calling Ethan's name, checking every alley and storefront. Nothing. When she finally returned home, exhausted and terrified, there was a voicemail on her phone. Mom, I'm okay. I'm staying with Dad for a while. The kidnappers, they messed me up pretty bad. I need some time. Don't try to find me. It was Ethan's voice, but something was off. He sounded distant. Mechanical. Lisa drove to Richard's mansion in the hills that evening. The house that used to be hers too, before the divorce, before she discovered his affairs, before her world fell apart. Richard answered the door looking haggard. His usually perfect silver hair was disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled. Is he here? Lisa demanded. Is Ethan here? Lisa, you need to understand. Just answer me. Is my son in this house? Richard stepped aside, letting her in. The foyer was exactly as she remembered, marble floors, crystal chandelier, oil paintings that cost more than most people's cars. He's upstairs, Richard said quietly. But Lisa, he's not the same. Whatever they did to him. Lisa pushed past him and ran up the curved staircase. She knew exactly which room would be Ethan's, his old bedroom from when they all lived here together. She knocked on the door. Ethan? Honey, it's Mom. Go away. His voice was muffled through the door. Ethan, please. I just need to see that you're okay. I said go away. Lisa tried the doorknob. Locked. Ethan, I'm your mother. Open this door right now. After a long pause, she heard footsteps. The lock clicked, and the door opened a crack. Ethan peered out, and Lisa gasped. He looked fine. Completely fine. No bruises, no cuts, no signs of trauma. If anything, he looked better than when he'd disappeared, like he'd been eating well and getting plenty of sleep. You look. Lisa started. I look what? There was something cold in Ethan's eyes, something she'd never seen before. You look fine. You look like nothing happened to you. Ethan opened the door wider, and Lisa saw his room, or rather, Richard's guest room that had become his room. It was filled with shopping bags. Expensive shopping bags. Nike, Apple, designer clothing brands. Ethan, Lisa said slowly, where did all this come from? That night, Lisa couldn't sleep. Something was deeply wrong with the entire situation. Ethan's appearance, his attitude, the shopping bags, none of it made sense. She decided to do what she should have done from the beginning, investigate. The next morning, she drove to Jake Morrison's house. She'd called the school and learned that Jake had also been absent for the past week, supposedly on a family trip. But when she arrived at the Morrison house, there were no cars in the driveway, no signs of life. The newspapers were piled up on the front porch, and the mail was overflowing. Lisa walked around to the back of the house and peered through the kitchen window. There, sitting at the kitchen table eating cereal and scrolling through his phone, was Ethan. Her son. Who was supposed to be traumatized and recovering at his father's house. Lisa's hands shook as she knocked on the back door. The look of absolute terror that crossed Ethan's face when he saw her told her everything she needed to know. Open the door, Ethan. Lisa's voice was deadly calm. Ethan slowly walked to the door, his face pale. When he opened it, Lisa noticed he was wearing brand new Air Jordan sneakers and had the latest iPhone in his hand. Mom, I can explain. You can explain? Lisa stepped into the kitchen. You can explain how you're sitting here eating cereal when you're supposed to be kidnapped? You can explain how you have $1,000 worth of new electronics and shoes? Ethan's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Where's Jake? Lisa demanded. He's upstairs. Jake. Lisa shouted toward the ceiling. Get down here now. Footsteps thundered down the stairs, and Jake appeared in the kitchen doorway. The blonde, skinny boy looked like he was about to faint. Mrs. Thompson, we can explain. Oh, I'm sure you can. Lisa pulled out her phone. Should I call your parents first, or the police? No, both boys shouted simultaneously. Then start talking. Now. Ethan sank into a chair, his head in his hands. It wasn't supposed to go this far. What wasn't supposed to go this far? The whole thing. The kidnapping. It was just supposed to be a joke at first, to scare you and Dad. But then when Dad actually sent the money. Lisa felt like the floor was falling out from under her. You faked your own kidnapping? Jake has these voice-changing apps on his computer, Ethan said, not meeting her eyes. And we found tutorials online about how to make fake ransom calls. It was supposed to be just for a day, maybe 2. The photo of your hand tied up? I tied it myself. Jake took the picture. The audio recordings of you crying? Voice changer. And some acting. Lisa stared at her son, this stranger wearing her child's face. You made me think you were dead. You made me think someone was going to murder my baby. You're not my baby anymore. Ethan suddenly exploded, jumping to his feet. I'm 16. And you ruined everything. You ruined our family. You ruined my life. I ruined your life. Ethan, your father was cheating on me with multiple women. I don't care. I don't care what Dad did. You should have just ignored it. You should have just stayed married so I could have my real life back. Lisa felt like she'd been slapped. Your real life? This house, this neighborhood, the private school, the car Dad was going to buy me for my birthday. You took it all away because you couldn't just look the other way like other wives do. Other wives? Ethan, where is this coming from? Dad explained it to me. He said that sometimes men make mistakes, but that doesn't mean you destroy the whole family over it. He said you were being selfish and vindictive. Lisa's hands clenched into fists. Of course Richard had been poisoning Ethan against her. So you decided to punish me by making me think you were kidnapped? I decided to get back what you took away from me, Ethan said defiantly. The $50,000. That's a down payment on the life you stole from me. How long have you been planning this? Lisa asked. Jake, who had been silent throughout the confrontation, finally spoke up. Since Christmas. That's when Ethan's dad told him about the divorce settlement, about how your mom got almost nothing. Dad told you about our divorce settlement? He told me everything, Ethan said. How you hired that expensive lawyer to try to take half his business. How you fought for alimony you didn't deserve. How you were trying to punish him financially for his mistakes. Lisa closed her eyes. The truth was, she'd asked for almost nothing in the divorce. She'd been so emotionally destroyed by Richard's betrayals that she just wanted out. She'd taken her clothes, her car, and enough money to rent a small apartment. Richard had kept the house, the business, the investments, everything. Ethan, that's not what happened. Yes, it is. Dad showed me the legal papers. What legal papers? The ones where you demanded half his money. Lisa realized that Richard had shown Ethan fabricated documents, or papers from some other divorce case. Her own divorce papers would show how little she'd actually asked for. We spent months planning it, Jake continued. Ethan researched kidnapping cases online. We figured out how to make untraceable phone calls, how to set up offshore bank accounts, how to make it look real. The Morrison family trip? My parents are in Europe for 2 weeks, Jake said. They think I'm staying with my aunt in Portland. She thinks I'm here. Nobody was checking on us. And you've been here the whole time? The whole time, Ethan confirmed. Jake's been ordering stuff online with the money Dad sent. We had it delivered here so you and Dad wouldn't see the packages. Lisa looked around the kitchen and noticed several Amazon boxes stacked in the corner. How much money do you have left? The boys exchanged glances. Most of it, Jake admitted. We only spent maybe $5,000. On what? Stuff, Ethan said defensively. Clothes, electronics, video games. Stuff I deserve to have. Stuff you deserve? Yes. Stuff I would have had if you hadn't broken up our family. Lisa sat down across from her son, studying his face. This wasn't just about money or material things. This was about a 16-year-old boy whose world had been turned upside down, who had been manipulated by his father, and who had convinced himself that cruelty was justified by his pain. Ethan, she said quietly, do you have any idea what the last week has been like for me? You deserved it, he said, but his voice was less certain now. I deserved to think my child was dead. I deserved to spend every night wondering if someone was torturing you. I deserved to blame myself for not protecting you. Ethan's jaw tightened, but she could see tears forming in his eyes. I haven't eaten in 4 days, Lisa continued. I haven't slept. I took a leave of absence from work because I couldn't function. I was ready to sell everything I owned to get you back. Dad had the money. Your father has always had money, Ethan. But I would have found a way. I would have begged, borrowed, stolen anything to get you back. Because that's what mothers do. You left Dad, Ethan said, but his voice was breaking now. I left your father because he was sleeping with his secretary, his business partner's wife, and 2 other women that I knew about. I left him because he brought one of them to our house, to our bed, while I was visiting my sick mother in the hospital. Ethan's face went white. That's not. Dad said it was just once, with one person, and it was a mistake. Your father has been lying to you, honey. Just like he lied to me for years. Jake was edging toward the door, clearly uncomfortable with the family drama unfolding in front of him. But if I hadn't left him, Lisa continued, if I had just accepted being married to a man who couldn't be faithful, what kind of example would that have set for you? What would that have taught you about relationships, about self-respect, about how to treat the people you love? Ethan was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. I didn't want to break up our family, Lisa said. But your father did that when he chose other women over his wife and son. What happens now? Jake asked nervously. Are you going to call the police? Lisa looked at the 2 boys, her son and his accomplice. They were 16 years old. They were kids who had made a terrible, cruel decision, but they were still kids. That depends, she said, on what you do next. What do you mean? Ethan asked. I mean, you stole $50,000 from your father through extortion and fraud. You put me through psychological torture. You committed multiple felonies. Lisa's voice was steady, but firm. Those are the facts. The question is, what are you going to do to make this right? We'll give the money back, Jake said quickly. That's a start. What else? The boys looked at each other, clearly not having thought beyond getting caught. You're going to tell your father exactly what you did, Lisa said to Ethan. Every detail. No more lies, no more manipulation. Mom, he'll kill me. No, he won't. But he might finally understand what his lies and manipulations have led to. What about Jake? Lisa looked at the blonde boy who was trying to make himself invisible in the corner. Jake is going to tell his parents everything when they get back from Europe. And Jake is going to spend the rest of the school year doing community service, helping real victims of real crimes. And if we do all that? Ethan asked. If you do all that, and if you both get counseling to help you understand why what you did was so incredibly wrong, then maybe I won't press charges. Really? Really. But Ethan, this is your one chance. If you ever lie to me again, if you ever manipulate or hurt people again, if you ever contact those offshore accounts or try to access that money, I will turn over every piece of evidence to the police and let them handle it. Ethan nodded frantically. And you're moving back home. No more living with your father, no more expensive gifts to buy your loyalty. You're going to learn what it means to be part of a family that doesn't have unlimited money but does have love and honesty. Okay, Ethan whispered. That evening, Lisa sat in Richard's living room while Ethan, with Jake beside him for moral support, told his father everything. Richard's face went through a series of emotions: confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally, something that might have been shame. You did what? Richard's voice was dangerously quiet. We faked the kidnapping, Ethan repeated, his voice barely audible. You made me think. Richard stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. You made me think my son was going to be murdered. Dad, I'm sorry. Sorry? Richard spun around. You're sorry? Ethan, I haven't slept in a week. I was ready to liquidate my entire business to get more money if they'd asked for it. Lisa watched her ex-husband's face, seeing something she'd rarely seen during their marriage, genuine emotion that wasn't about his own convenience or image. But Dad, you always said that Mom was the one who... I don't care what I said. Richard shouted. Nothing I said justifies what you did. Nothing justifies making your mother think you were dead. He turned to Lisa, his face full of something that looked like regret. Lisa, I don't know what to say. You could start with the truth, Lisa said quietly. You could start by telling Ethan the real story of our divorce. No more lies about greedy lawyers or vindictive wives. Just the truth. Richard looked at his son, who was staring at the floor. The truth is, Richard said slowly, your mother asked for almost nothing when we divorced. She could have taken half of everything I owned, but she didn't. She just wanted to get away from me. Ethan looked up, confused. And the truth is, I was angry about that. I was angry that she made me feel like a villain instead of just accepting that marriages sometimes fail. So I may have told you things that weren't entirely accurate. You lied to me, Ethan said. Yes, Richard admitted. I lied to you. And I'm sorry. 3 months later, Lisa was grading papers at her kitchen table when Ethan walked in from his after-school job at a local grocery store. How was work? She asked. Boring. But I made $43 today. He sat down across from her, looking exhausted. That's good. You're almost halfway to paying back the money Jake's parents spent on his counseling. Ethan nodded. Part of his consequences had been to reimburse the Morrison family for Jake's therapy sessions, since Jake's involvement in the fake kidnapping had been Ethan's idea. "Mom?" Ethan said after a moment. "Yeah? I've been thinking about what Dr. Martinez said in our session yesterday. About how what I did to you was basically psychological abuse." Lisa looked up from her papers. Ethan had been going to therapy twice a week since the incident, both individually and with Lisa for family sessions. "What about it?" "I keep trying to convince myself that I had good reasons. That I was just angry about the divorce, or that I wanted my old life back, or that I was listening to Dad's side of the story. But none of that makes it okay, does it? I mean, even if all of Dad's lies had been true, even if you really had been trying to take all his money out of spite, that still wouldn't justify making you think I was kidnapped." Lisa set down her pen and looked at her son. Over the past 3 months, she'd watched him struggle with the reality of what he'd done. Some days he was defensive and angry. Other days he was remorseful and ashamed. Today seemed to be a breakthrough day. "No," she said gently. "It wouldn't justify it. I keep having these dreams," Ethan continued, "where someone kidnaps me for real. And in the dreams, I'm begging them to let me call you, but they won't. And I realize that's what I made you think was happening to me." Lisa reached across the table and took his hand. "The worst part," Ethan said, tears starting to form, "is that I wanted you to suffer. That was actually part of the plan. I wanted you to feel as bad as I felt about the divorce. And how do you feel about that now?" "I feel like a monster." Lisa squeezed his hand. "You're not a monster, Ethan. You're a 16-year-old boy who made a terrible decision while he was in pain. The difference between a monster and a person who made a mistake is what they do afterward." "What do you mean?" "A monster would do it again. A monster wouldn't care about the people they hurt. A monster wouldn't be sitting here crying about the pain they caused their mother." Ethan wiped his eyes with his free hand. "But you," Lisa continued, "you're working to make it right. You're paying Jake's family back. You're going to therapy. You're trying to understand why what you did was wrong. That's not what monsters do. Do you forgive me?" Ethan asked quietly. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. "I'm working on it," she said honestly. "Some days I wake up and I'm still angry. Some days I look at you and I remember that week when I thought you were dead, and I feel sick all over again." Ethan nodded, looking down at the table. "But other days," Lisa continued, "I look at you and I see my son who's trying to grow up and be better. And those days are getting more frequent." "What about Dad? What about him? Are you going to forgive him? For the lies he told me about you?" Lisa considered the question. Richard had apologized, but their relationship remained complicated. "Your father and I hurt each other in a lot of ways," she said finally. "The lies he told you were just the most recent hurt. I think forgiveness is something that happens over time, not all at once." "He wants to pay for my college," Ethan said. "I know. He told me. Is that okay? I mean, is it okay if I let him?" Lisa smiled slightly. "Ethan, despite everything that happened between your father and me, and despite the mistakes he made with you, he's still your father. He loves you, and he wants to help you build a good life. There's nothing wrong with accepting that help. Even after what I did? Especially after what you did. Taking responsibility for your mistakes doesn't mean you have to punish yourself forever. It means you learn from them and do better." Lisa was in her classroom after school, putting up new posters for the next semester, when there was a knock on her door. "Come in," she called. Ethan walked in, wearing his cap and gown. It was graduation day. "Hey," he said, smiling. "Ready to go to dinner?" "Just about." "How does it feel to be a high school graduate?" "Weird." "Good weird, but weird." Lisa gathered her things and they walked out to the parking lot together. Richard was waiting by his car, he was driving them all to dinner to celebrate. "You know," Ethan said as they walked, "Jake got into Portland State." "That's great. How's he doing? Better. His parents said the community service really helped him. He's been volunteering at a crisis hotline. And you? Still planning on business school? Actually, Ethan said, stopping beside Richard's car, I've been thinking about changing my major. Oh. I want to study psychology. Maybe become a counselor or therapist. Lisa raised her eyebrows. That's a big change from business. Yeah, but I don't know. After everything that happened, after all the therapy sessions, I keep thinking about how much Dr. Martinez helped me understand myself. I want to be able to do that for other kids who are angry and making stupid decisions. Richard had gotten out of his car and was listening to the conversation. That's a noble goal, son, he said. But are you sure? Psychology doesn't pay as much as business. Ethan looked at his father, then at his mother. Dad, I spent 6 months working at a grocery store to pay back money I stole from you. I think I've learned that there are more important things than how much money you make. Lisa felt her eyes fill with tears, good tears, for once. Besides, Ethan continued, I want to do something that helps people instead of just making money off them. Richard looked like he wanted to argue, but then he nodded. If that's what you want, I'll support you. Thanks, Dad. As they got into the car, Lisa reflected on how much had changed in the past year. Ethan was still her son, but he was also becoming a young man she was genuinely proud of. Richard was still her ex-husband, but he was trying to be a better father. And she was still a single mother living in a small apartment, but she was no longer carrying the weight of fear and deception that had nearly destroyed her family. The fake kidnapping had been the worst week of her life. But in some ways, it had also been the beginning of the most honest relationship she'd ever had with her son. As Richard pulled out of the school parking lot, heading toward the restaurant, Lisa looked out the window and smiled. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us force us to confront truths we've been avoiding. Sometimes they break us down so we can build ourselves back up stronger. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, they teach us that real love, can survive even the deepest betrayals, as long as it's accompanied by honesty, accountability, and the genuine desire to be better. Ethan would start college in the fall. He would study psychology, work with troubled teenagers, and hopefully help other families avoid the pain his family had gone through. Jake had learned that actions have consequences, but also that people can change and grow from their mistakes. Richard had learned that his lies and manipulations had real costs, not just for Lisa, but for his son. And Lisa had learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is forgive, not because the person deserves it, but because holding on to anger and hurt only gives them more power over your life. The kidnapping had been fake, but the love that survived it was real. And that, Lisa thought as they drove toward their celebratory dinner, was worth more than all the money in Richard's offshore accounts. 2 years later, Lisa was grading papers in her apartment when her phone rang. It was 2 a.m. Mom? Ethan's voice was shaky, distant. Ethan? What's wrong? Are you okay? I think I made a mistake. Lisa sat up in bed, instantly alert. What kind of mistake? Coming here. Studying psychology. All of it. She could hear him breathing heavily. I can't do this, Mom. Every time I sit in class and they talk about trauma and manipulation and family dysfunction, all I can think about is what I did to you. Lisa's heart ached for her son. She'd worried this might happen, that studying psychology would force him to confront his past actions in ways that might be too overwhelming. Where are you right now? In my dorm room. My roommate's asleep. Ethan, listen to me carefully. Are you having thoughts of hurting yourself? A long pause. No. Not really. I feel like I'm never going to be able to help anyone because I'm the kind of person who hurt people. That's not true, honey. The fact that you understand how much you hurt people makes you exactly the kind of person who can help others avoid making the same mistakes. But what if I can't get past it? What if every time I try to counsel someone, I just think about how I'm a fraud because I'm the one who needs counseling? Lisa got out of bed and walked to her kitchen, turning on the light. Ethan, do you remember what Dr. Martinez told us about wounded healers? Sort of. She said that some of the best therapists and counselors are people who have been through their own trauma and pain. Not because the pain makes them wise, but because working through the pain teaches them how healing actually happens. I don't feel healed. You don't have to feel completely healed to help other people start their healing process. You just have to be honest about where you are in your own journey. She could hear him crying softly on the other end of the line. Tell me about your classes, Lisa said gently. What specifically is triggering these feelings? We're studying family systems theory. And today the professor was talking about how children sometimes act out their parents' unresolved conflicts. How kids become the symptom of the family's dysfunction. And you saw yourself in that? I saw myself as the kid who chose to become the symptom instead of just carrying it. Like, instead of just being depressed or getting bad grades or doing drugs like most kids from divorced families, I decided to actively hurt people. Lisa considered her words carefully. Ethan, what you did was terrible. We both know that. But you were 16, you were in pain, and you were being manipulated by your father. That doesn't excuse what you did, but it does explain it. But other kids go through divorce and don't fake their own kidnapping. You're right. They don't. But other kids also don't spend 2 years in therapy working to understand why they made those choices. Other kids don't change their entire life path to help people. Other kids don't call their mothers at 2 a.m. because they're worried about being good enough to help others. So what do? You keep going. You use what you've learned about yourself to understand other people. And when you're ready, you tell your story to the people you're trying to help. Tell them I faked my own kidnapping? Tell them you know what it's like to be so angry and hurt that you make choices that destroy the people you love most. Tell them you know what it's like to have to rebuild trust and forgiveness from scratch. Tell them that healing is possible, but it's hard work. Ethan was quiet for several minutes. Mom? Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me. Even when I probably deserved it. I never gave up on you, Ethan. Even during the worst of it, even when I was so angry I could barely look at you, I never stopped loving you. I know. And that's probably why I can do this. Because if you could forgive me, maybe other people can forgive themselves for the things they've done. 6 months later, Ethan was sitting in his own therapist's office on campus. Dr. Sarah Chin, a young woman who specialized in working with college students dealing with guilt and shame. I keep having the same dream, Ethan was saying. I'm 16 again, and I'm planning the fake kidnapping. But in the dream, my mom actually dies from the stress. Like, she has a heart attack from worrying about me, and she dies. How do you feel when you wake up from these dreams? Terrified. And guilty. But also. He paused, trying to find the words. Also grateful? Because I wake up and realize she's still alive, that I didn't actually kill her with what I did. Dr. Chin nodded. It sounds like these dreams are your psyche's way of processing the magnitude of what could have happened. The fact that your actions could have had even more serious consequences than they did. My psychology professor says that guilt can be adaptive or maladaptive. Adaptive guilt motivates you to make amends and do better. Maladaptive guilt just paralyzes you. Which kind do you think you're experiencing? Ethan thought about it. Both, I think. The adaptive guilt is what made me change my major, what makes me want to help other kids who are angry and making bad choices. But the maladaptive guilt is what makes me think I don't deserve to be happy, or that I'm not good enough to help anyone. What would need to happen for you to move more toward adaptive guilt and away from maladaptive guilt? I don't know. Maybe I need to actually help someone? Like, prove to myself that I can use what I learned to make a positive difference? Dr. Chen leaned forward. That's interesting. Tell me more about that. Well, there's this kid in my dorm. Marcus. He's been getting into fights, skipping classes, basically acting out in all these destructive ways. And I keep thinking I could probably talk to him, because I understand what it's like to be angry and want to hurt people. But you haven't approached him? I'm scared. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I make it worse? What if he finds out about what I did and decides I'm just a hypocrite? What would you say to another student who came to you with those same fears? Ethan smiled slightly. I'd probably tell them that their fear shows they care about not causing harm, which is actually a good quality in someone who wants to help people. Exactly. The next week, Ethan found Marcus sitting alone in the dining hall, staring at his untouched food. Mind if I sit here? Ethan asked. Marcus looked up, suspicious. Why? Because you look like I felt when I was your age. Angry at the world and not sure what to do about it. Marcus snorted. You don't know anything about me. You're right. I don't. But I know what it's like to be so mad at your parents that you want to punish everyone around you. I know what it's like to feel like the adults in your life have screwed up your world and there's nothing you can do about it. Marcus stared at him for a long moment. What makes you think that's what's going on with me? Because happy people don't get into 3 fights in 2 weeks. Happy people don't fail classes they're smart enough to pass. Happy people don't sit alone in dining halls staring at food they're not eating. So what, you're like a counselor or something? Not yet. I'm studying to be one. But mostly I'm just someone who used to be really angry and did some really terrible things because of it. Like what? Ethan took a deep breath. This was the moment Dr. Chin had been preparing him for, the moment when he would have to decide whether to be honest about his past or try to help from a distance. I faked my own kidnapping to punish my mother for divorcing my father. Marcus's eyes widened. Are you serious? Dead serious. I made her think I was being held by kidnappers who were going to kill me. I let her suffer for a week thinking her son was going to die, all because I was angry about my parents' divorce. Holy shit. Yeah. Holy shit. And you know what the worst part was? What? I wanted her to suffer. That was the whole point. I wanted to hurt her as much as I was hurting. Marcus was quiet for several minutes, processing this information. What happened after she found out? She could have had me arrested. She could have disowned me. She could have sent me to live with my father permanently and never spoken to me again. But she didn't? She didn't. She made me get therapy, made me pay back the money, made me take responsibility for what I'd done. But she didn't give up on me. Why are you telling me this? Because I see you making the same kinds of choices I made. Different choices, but coming from the same place: anger and pain and feeling like you don't have any control over your life. Marcus looked down at his hands. My parents are getting divorced too. That sucks. They've been fighting for 2 years. My dad moved out last month. My mom cries all the time. And everyone keeps telling me that it's not my fault, that these things happen, that I'll be okay. But you don't feel okay. I feel like my whole life is falling apart and there's nothing I can do to stop it. Ethan nodded. So you're fighting people who have nothing to do with your parents' problems. I guess. It just feels good to hit something, you know? Like, for a few seconds, I'm not the helpless kid whose parents are destroying his family. I'm someone who can actually do something. I get that. The fake kidnapping made me feel powerful too. Like I was finally able to make the adults in my life feel as helpless as they'd made me feel. Did it work? Oh, it worked. I made my mom feel completely helpless and terrified. I made my dad panic and desperate. I had all the power in the situation. But it didn't actually fix anything. My parents were still divorced. I was still angry. I was still hurt. All I'd done was add guilt and shame to the anger and hurt. And I'd damaged my relationship with the one person who actually loved me unconditionally. Marcus was quiet again. The thing is, Ethan continued, I thought my mom was the enemy because she was the one who left my dad. But she wasn't the enemy. She was just another person who was hurt and trying to survive a bad situation. So what did you do? To fix it, I mean. I'm still fixing it. It's been 3 years, and I'm still working on it. But I started by telling the truth about what I'd done, about why I'd done it, about how sorry I was. And then I had to prove that I was sorry by changing my behavior. And your mom forgave you? Eventually. It took time. And I had to earn it back by showing her that I was becoming someone worthy of forgiveness. Marcus picked up his fork and took a bite of his food, the first bite Ethan had seen him take. I don't want to be angry all the time, Marcus said quietly. Then let's figure out how to help you not be angry all the time. Over the next few months, Ethan met with Marcus regularly. Sometimes they just talked about classes or sports or girls. But often they talked about anger, about feeling powerless, about the complicated emotions that come with watching your parents' marriage fall apart. Marcus stopped getting into fights. His grades improved. He even started dating a girl from his chemistry class. You know what's weird? Marcus said to Ethan one afternoon as they walked across campus. What's weird? Talking to you has helped me more than the actual counselor my parents made me see. Why do you think that is? Because the counselor keeps telling me that what I'm feeling is normal and understandable. Which is true, I guess, but it doesn't really help. You tell me that what I'm feeling makes sense, but that what I'm doing about it is destructive and needs to change. Ethan smiled. Dr. Chen would say that's the difference between validation and challenge. You need both, but most people only get one or the other. Dr. Chen is your therapist? Yeah. She's helping me figure out how to use my experiences to help other people without getting lost in my own guilt and shame. Is it working? I think so. I mean, helping you has helped me realize that I'm not irredeemably damaged. That I can actually use what I learned about myself to make a positive difference. Good. Because I've been thinking about something. What's that? I want to start a support group. For kids whose parents are going through messy divorces. And I want you to help me run it. Ethan stopped walking. Are you serious? Dead serious. I think there are a lot of kids on this campus who are dealing with the same stuff I was dealing with. And I think they'd benefit from talking to other kids who get it, led by someone who's been through it and come out the other side. Marcus, I'm not qualified to run a support group. I'm just a sophomore psychology major. You're qualified to be honest about your experiences and help other people learn from your mistakes. That's all anyone really needs. That night, Ethan called his mother. Mom, I think I might be ready to tell my story publicly. What do you mean? Marcus wants to start a support group for kids from divorced families, and he wants me to help run it. Which would mean telling other people about what I did. Lisa was quiet for a moment. How do you feel about that? Scared. But also excited. Like maybe this is how I turn something terrible into something useful. What does Dr. Chen think? She thinks it could be therapeutic for me, as long as I'm doing it for the right reasons. Which are? To help other kids, not to punish myself or try to earn forgiveness I haven't already received. And which reasons are you doing it for? Ethan thought about it. Both, probably. But mostly to help other kids. Because Marcus is right, there are probably a lot of students here who are angry and hurt and making destructive choices because they don't know how to handle their parents' problems. Then I think you should do it. Really? Really. You've spent 3 years learning from your mistakes. Maybe it's time to help other people learn from them too. The first meeting of the Broken Homes, Healing Hearts support group was held in a small conference room in the student center. Ethan had expected maybe 5 or 6 people. 23 students showed up. Wow, Marcus whispered to Ethan as they looked at the crowded room. I guess we're not the only ones dealing with this stuff. Ethan stood up nervously. Hi everyone. I'm Ethan, and this is Marcus. We started this group because we both know what it's like to have your world turned upside down by your parents' problems. A girl in the front row raised her hand. Are you guys like trained counselors or something? No, Ethan said honestly. We're just students who've been through some stuff and learned some things that we think might be helpful to share. What kind of stuff? Asked a guy in the back. Ethan looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. When I was 16, my parents got divorced. I was so angry about it that I faked my own kidnapping to punish my mother. The room went completely silent. I made her think I'd been taken by people who were going to kill me. I let her suffer for a week, thinking her son was dead, because I wanted her to hurt as much as I was hurting. A girl near the window gasped softly. Obviously, that was a terrible thing to do. It was cruel, it was criminal, and it nearly destroyed my relationship with my mother permanently. He paused, looking around the room at the faces staring back at him, some shocked, some understanding, some judgmental. I'm telling you this not because I'm proud of it, but because I want you to understand that I know what it's like to be so angry that you want to hurt the people you love. I know what it's like to feel like your parents have ruined your life and you want to ruin theirs back. A boy who looked like he was maybe 18 raised his hand tentatively. What happened after your mom found out? She could have had me arrested. Instead, she made me get help. She made me take responsibility for what I'd done. And she taught me that love doesn't mean accepting destructive behavior, it means holding people accountable while still believing they can change. Did you change? Asked the girl in the front row. I'm still changing. Every day. That's why I'm here, talking to you guys, instead of sitting in my room feeling sorry for myself. Marcus stood up. The thing is, we all have choices about how we handle our anger and pain. We can use it to hurt people, or we can use it to understand and help people. This group is about learning to make the second choice. Over the next hour, students shared their stories. Parents who were cheating, parents who were fighting over money, parents who were using their children as weapons against each other, parents who were so focused on their own drama that they'd forgotten their kids existed. The hardest part, said a girl named Sarah, is that everyone expects you to just be okay with it. Like, oh, your parents are getting divorced? That's tough, but these things happen. Nobody talks about how angry you are, or how much you want to scream at them to just act like adults. Yes, said another student. And if you do act angry, everyone's like, this is just your way of processing the divorce. Like your feelings aren't valid on their own. Ethan found himself nodding along with their experiences, remembering his own frustration with well-meaning adults who tried to minimize his pain. One thing I learned in therapy, he said, is that your anger is valid. Your pain is real. Your feelings about your parents' choices are legitimate. The question isn't whether you have a right to be angry, you do. The question is what you're going to do with that anger. What do you mean? Asked the boy who'd asked about changing. I mean, anger can be fuel for positive change or fuel for destruction. When I faked my kidnapping, I was using my anger as fuel for destruction. When I decided to change my major to psychology, I was using my anger as fuel for positive change. A girl named Jessica, who'd been quiet through most of the meeting, finally spoke up. What if you've already done destructive things? What if you've already hurt people because you were angry? Then you take responsibility for it, Ethan said. You apologize, you make amends, and you work to do better. But you don't use your past mistakes as an excuse to keep making destructive choices. Is that what you did? That's what I'm still doing. Every day. 3 months after the support group started, Ethan received an unexpected email. It was from Jake Morrison, his accomplice in the fake kidnapping, whom he hadn't spoken to since high school graduation. Hey Ethan. I hope this email finds you well. I know we haven't talked since graduation, and I wasn't sure if you'd want to hear from me, but I felt like I needed to reach out. I'm a junior at Portland State now, studying social work. I know that probably sounds weird coming from someone who helped you fake a kidnapping, but hear me out. After everything that happened, After the community service and therapy and having to face what we did, I realized that I want to spend my life helping people instead of hurting them. I've been working at a crisis hotline for the past year, and I keep thinking about how our fake kidnapping could have prevented someone from getting real help if the lines had been tied up with our bullshit. I heard through the grapevine, my mom saw your mom at the grocery store, that you're studying psychology and that you're running some kind of support group. I wanted you to know that I think that's amazing, and I'm proud of you for turning something so terrible into something positive. I also wanted to apologize again. I know I apologized back then, but I was 17 and I don't think I really understood the magnitude of what we did. Now that I'm older and working with people who are actually in crisis, I understand how cruel and dangerous our actions were. Your mom could have had a heart attack from the stress. Your dad could have gotten hurt trying to deliver ransom money to people he thought were killers. The police resources that would have been wasted if they'd been called in. The trauma we inflicted on everyone who loved you. I think about it a lot. Probably too much, according to my therapist. Anyway, I wanted you to know that I'm trying to make amends too. I'm working with at-risk kids now, trying to help them find better ways to handle their anger and pain than the way we handled ours. If you ever want to talk, or if you think there's a way we could work together to help other kids avoid making the mistakes we made, I'd be open to that. I hope you're doing well, and I hope your mom is doing well too. She didn't deserve what we put her through. Jake. Ethan read the email 3 times before calling his mother. Jake contacted me, he said when she answered. Jake Morrison? How is he? He's studying social work. Working at a crisis hotline. He apologized again for what we did. That's good. How do you feel about hearing from him? Complicated. Part of me is glad that he's trying to make amends too. But part of me is still angry at him for going along with my plan. Even though it was your idea? Even though it was my idea. I know that's not fair, but it's how I feel. Lisa was quiet for a moment. You know, Dr. Martinez always said that forgiveness is a process, not an event. Maybe you're not ready to forgive Jake yet, and that's okay. But he's doing good work now. He's helping people. That doesn't mean you have to forgive him on his timeline. You can acknowledge that he's doing good work while still processing your own feelings about what happened. He wants to work together somehow. To help other kids avoid making the same mistakes we made. What do you think about that? I think I'm not ready for that yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. Then tell him that. Be honest about where you are in your own healing process. That night, Ethan wrote back to Jake. Jake. Thank you for your email and for your apology. It means a lot to know that you're working to help people now. I'm not ready to work together yet. I'm still processing my own feelings about what we did, and I think I need to focus on my own healing and the work I'm doing here before I can think about collaborating with you. But I'm glad you're doing well, and I'm glad you're helping people. Maybe someday we can find a way to work together to prevent other kids from making the choices we made. For now, I think it's enough that we're both trying to turn our mistakes into something positive, even if we're doing it separately. Ethan. Lisa was sitting in the audience at the university graduation ceremony, watching her son walk across the stage to receive his master's degree in clinical psychology. He'd finished his undergraduate degree in 3 years, then gone straight into a graduate program that combined clinical training with research on adolescent behavioral interventions. Richard was sitting beside her, not because they'd reconciled, but because they'd learned to co-parent as friends rather than enemies. He'd remarried 2 years earlier, to a woman who actually seemed to make him happy and who treated Ethan with kindness and respect. I'm proud of him, Richard said quietly as they watched Ethan shake hands with the dean. So am I, Lisa replied. I know I haven't said this before, but thank you for not giving up on him. After what he did, after what I did, you had every right to walk away from both of us. Lisa looked at her ex-husband. He's our son, Richard. He made a terrible mistake, but he was still our son. Still. A lot of people would have pressed charges, would have let him face the legal consequences. Maybe they would have. But I don't think prison would have taught him what he needed to learn. I think it would have just made him angrier and more damaged. Richard nodded. The therapy route was better. Even though it was harder in some ways. Everything worthwhile is hard. After the ceremony, they met Ethan outside the auditorium. He was still wearing his cap and gown, grinning widely. "Dr. Thompson," Lisa said, hugging him tightly. "I like the sound of that." "It's not official until I pass my licensing exam," Ethan said. "But yeah, it feels pretty good." "What's next?" Richard asked. "I got a job offer from the University Counseling Center. They want me to work with at-risk students and run support groups. Like the one you started as an undergrad? Similar, but bigger. And more official. They're actually going to pay me to do what I've been doing as a volunteer." Lisa smiled. "Your fake kidnapping is going to end up on your resume as relevant experience." Ethan laughed. "In a weird way, it kind of is. I mean, I understand adolescent anger and poor decision-making from a very personal perspective." "Any word from Jake?" Richard asked. "Actually, yes. He graduated from social work school last month. He's working with juvenile offenders now. Are you two planning to collaborate eventually?" "Maybe. We've been emailing more regularly. I think we're both ready to have an honest conversation about what we did and how we can prevent other kids from making similar choices." "That would be something," Lisa said. The two kids who faked a kidnapping growing up to help other kids avoid making destructive choices. "It would be poetic justice," Ethan agreed. As they walked toward the car, Ethan put his arm around his mother's shoulders. "Mom?" "Yeah?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For believing that I could become someone worth believing in." Lisa felt tears forming in her eyes. "You were always worth believing in, Ethan. Even when you couldn't see it yourself. I know that now. But it took a long time to get here. The best things always do." As they drove away from the graduation ceremony, Lisa reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The fake kidnapping had been the worst experience of her life, but it had also been the beginning of the most honest and authentic relationship she'd ever had with her son. Ethan would spend his career helping young people who were angry and hurt and making destructive choices. He would tell them his story, not to excuse their behavior, but to show them that change was possible, that mistakes didn't have to define them, and that even the worst choices could be redeemed through honest work and genuine remorse. The kidnapping had been fake, but everything that came after it had been real: the pain, the healing, the growth, the forgiveness, and ultimately, the love that had survived it all.